Hey everybody, it's me, Angela Walters, your favorite Midnight Quilter, and in this episode, I'm gonna be feeling the love as I go to town quilting this beautiful Heart of Mine wall hanging. This quilt was actually in an earlier episode of the Midnight Quilter where I showed you how it goes together and we kind of did a refresher course on the basic half square triangle block. And now it's time for my all-time favorite part, the machine quilting. I mean, let's be honest, I love quilting any kind of quilt, but I especially love quilting wall hangings. It's because there's nothing quite as fun as starting a new project and ending a new project. And when those happen a lot closer to each other, because it's a smaller quilt, it's even better. So I've already made my quilt sandwich, which has the backing, batting, and of course the quilt top with some safety pins holding those all together. I used this beautiful pinkish red fabric for the backing. I've also picked out a couple threads to use on this quilt. It's gonna look gorgeous on the darker fabrics in the heart. But I definitely don't want that bright purple in the background area. That's not gonna look great. So I'm gonna switch to a light pink for that area. I am using pink even though the background fabric is light gray. The reason it works is because they're similar in value. So I'll be able to see it just a little bit, get a little hint of that pink without being overwhelming. But before I get started, I have to not only have a little bit of my quilting juice, I need to kind of make a plan for how I'm gonna quilt the quilt. I like to have at least a little idea of what I'm gonna do, but I don't necessarily go through and plan the whole thing. So looking at the heart block, I thought it would be great to show off that kind of geometric pieced quilting with some geometric designs. At first, I thought I might do some echoing inside the blocks or maybe some dot-to-dot quilting that goes to a point, but then I realized I can quilt some of these blocks so they make a secondary pattern inside the heart. It's like a surprise on top of a surprise. Since it's made up of half square triangles, it's on a grid, and all I have to do is kind of decide what blocks I want to connect to make my shape. I do love having unlimited possibilities, but it can make it a little difficult to choose. I think what I'm gonna do is quilt a couple small hearts and then use some echoing around the outside. And then in the background, I think I'm gonna go with something a little different. Normally when I do one kind of design in one area of the quilt, I like to do the opposite in the other. So if I'm thinking geometric kind of designs for this area, I wanna do something nice and curvy in the background area. But what I'm thinking I'm gonna do is use the quilting to kind of break it up and quilt some different fillers in between them. I can use any quilting design to break that up into chunks, but I think what I'm gonna use is my new stencil. Now, I designed this stencil to have ribbon candy and swirls, but I'm thinking I'm just gonna do the ribbon candy, leaving those spaces in between to fill in with different fillers. I think it will add some interest and a lovely texture without being too overwhelming to the main part of the quilt, which is that beautiful heart. And just like the heart, I have plenty of options on how I wanna break up the space. But I think what I'm gonna do is follow the angles of the block by marking out my stencil so that it goes like this. Now, even though I like to have a little bit of a plan when I start quilting, I'm never so committed to the plan that I won't change it. I can't tell you how many times I've started quilts with this great idea only to think of something different right before I started. Well, now that I have somewhat of a game plan, I'm gonna grab my ruler and my sewing machine, my quilting juice and my popcorn, and I'm gonna get to quilting. So I have my machine set up, I have my extended base and my quilt ready to go. And in the time it took me to do all that, I've already changed my mind on how I'm gonna quilt this heart. Instead of doing a smaller heart, I think I'm gonna do a block that looks like an Ohio star. Just something to give it a little bit more of a patchwork kind of look. It's probably kind of hard to see since all these blocks look the same, but what I'm gonna do is outline these blocks right here and then do a little something in the center. Leaving those unquilted will hopefully make them pop out from the rest. This is pieced with some busier fabrics, so I'm not 100% sure it's gonna show up all that much, but I think I'm gonna go for it. And to be sure I don't forget where I want that block to be, I'm gonna go ahead and stitch around the outside of those blocks first. Since this block is pieced with a lot of half square triangles, I'm gonna have some seams with a lot of bulk in them. So as I approach those bulkier areas, I'm just gonna slow down and take my time. Once I have the outside all kind of stitched down, I'm gonna do the same in the center square. I will say that I don't normally quilt this slow, but when I'm trying to stitch along the seams, I wanna be as precise as possible. Now that I have that block kind of highlighted with the stitching, I'm gonna go ahead and stitch around the outside of the heart as well, just to kind of stabilize it and keep it in place. Then I'll get to fill inside the heart, which is gonna be the fun part. I know some quilters don't like stitching in the ditch because it's not very fun to do, but I love how it looks on the quilt. I just really like how it makes the blocks lay nice and flat and how it helps show off the piecing. course, it is an optional step, so you can totally skip it if you don't want to do it. There's nothing quite like being up close and personal with your piece top to realize how good or bad your points are. As I was working my way around this heart, I noticed there were a lot of seams that didn't quite match up perfectly. So instead of highlighting those not well pieced points, I think I'm going to echo around the inside of the heart a couple times, then fill in the inside with an all-over design. That's going to help me work around some of those bulky seams and also help not draw attention to the fact that my points might not be perfect. And since this is an echo line and not stitching in the ditch, I'm going to use my ruler to help me keep it evenly spaced. And as I'm working my way around the block, I'm using my reference lines to make sure my ruler is staying straight to the side of the block. Echoing is another one of those things that isn't totally necessary, but I really love how the echo lines are going to help separate the filler inside the heart from the filler I'm going to put around the outside of the heart. I like to say that echoing is kind of like putting a parentheses around something to show it off. So if I can't show off my points, since the piecing isn't great everywhere, I can at least use the echoing to show off the outside of my block. Now that I got the echoing finished, I'm going to start filling in the rest of it with a swirly kind of all-over design. The reason I'm going with swirls is because it's quick for me to quilt and it is one of my favorite designs. When I'm dealing with busy fabric, I like to do something that's nice and mindless. And as I work my way around the quilt, I'm going to add another echo line inside the one I previously quilted. There's really no rhyme or reason for this, I just like how it looks. Instead of quilting that whole second echo and then coming back and filling up the swirls, I'm kind of quilting it in chunks. Quilting a little bit of the echo, a little bit of the swirls, a little bit of the echo, a little bit of the swirls. Mostly because I'm easily bored, so switching up between designs helps keep me a little bit more engaged in the quilting. I feel like machine quilting is almost like meditation. My mind just kind of wanders as I quilt those swirls. And I know it's not like that for everybody, but I promise, after you practice a little bit, you'll definitely get there. And then, because I like echo lines so much, I'm going to add some echo lines inside that bigger block. These echo lines are going to help separate it from the rest of the filler around it and help it stand out just a little bit more. Now that I'm done with the heart, it's time to focus on the background parts of the quilt. Using my stencil and my Pounce pad, I went ahead and marked out a row of those ribbon candies in the background area of my quilt. And even though I normally use a blue or white Pounce pad, I thought that the pink color would be perfect for this quilt. And what's great about stencils is it gives you a nice guideline to follow, so it kind of makes it almost like mindless quilting. I used a Pounce pad as my marking tool because it's nice and quick with stencils, but you can use any marking tool that you feel comfortable with. Don't worry if your quilting isn't perfectly on top of those marked lines. Once you're done quilting, those lines are going to get removed and you're not even going to see where it was supposed to go. Now I'm using the stencil just to make the quilting a little bit easier and because I love the look of ribbon candy. But you can use any design to break up that background area into smaller pieces. You can do swirls, straight lines, wavy lines. I mean, really the options are endless. Then once I'm done quilting that ribbon candy, I'm going to use echoing to help separate it from the rest of the filler. Then I'm going to fill in the area on one side of the ribbon candy with a different design than the other side. And at this point, any design you pick would be perfect. I think I'm going to go with some bigger circles on one side and then do some Paisleys on the other. I love Pebbles because they have a nice static look. They kind of smash down the area around something else and help it shine. But to keep them from being tedious and from taking forever, I'm going to quilt them so that they're a little bit bigger. Changing up the size of those pebbles not only makes it quicker to quilt, it also gives it a softer texture. And if you're not sure how to quilt the designs I'm showing you in this video, don't worry. I have a whole video series all about quilting different fillers. From swirls to circles to squares and straight lines, it has tons of designs in it. So be sure to click the link in the description box below to find those. Now, as I'm quilting a bunch of different designs in the area, I'm totally fine with switching back and forth in between them. I'd rather quilt a few pebbles, do a little bit of echoing, add some Paisleys, and then come back to it, than do the same design for a big chunk of time. But of course, you can handle it totally different. Do all of one design and the other, or mix it up like I do. What I love about it is there's no wrong way to go about the quilting. And the reason I picked the Paisley design for the other area is it has a nice kind of curvy, pointy texture. It almost resembles a half heart shape. It doesn't look like that exactly, but if it's late enough at night and I've had enough wine, it starts looking like hearts to me. All jokes aside, I just love that curvy kind of texture and it looks really nice up against the heart. I often joke that quilting the first 25% of the quilt takes about as long as quilting the rest of the quilt. It's just because that's when I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to quilt and how I'm going to work my way around the area. But once I get that all figured out, it goes nice and quick. So I'm going to finish quilting this with my Paisleys and my ribbon candy and my circles, and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm all finished. And check it out, this quilt is finished. And even though I had to change up my quilting plan a little bit, I love how it turned out. Combining some of the triangles with quilting creates that star-shaped block, which is a lovely secondary pattern, while the echo lines around the heart help separate it from the quilting in the background area. I love how the light pink thread lets you see a little bit of the texture of the quilting and how I broke up that background area without being overwhelming. This wall hanging was not only quick to put together, it was a lot of fun to make. It's gonna look great on the wall as we head into Valentine's Day and beyond. To learn more about this quilt or to watch previous episodes of the Midnight Quilter, be sure to visit my website, quiltingismytherapy.com, or click the link in the description box below. And thank you so much for quilting along with me. I've had a blast hanging out with you. And I'll be back soon with another episode of the Midnight Quilter. Until then, everybody, happy quilting.